Deep in the silent, suffocating darkness of the Cerberus void, where the light of dying stars struggles to pierce the veil of ancient nebulae, lies a secret that the universe forgot to bury. For 30,000 years, the galaxy had moved on. Great empires rose from the dust of forgotten civilizations. Species evolved from primordial slime into star-faring gods. And the very name of the third planet from a small yellow sun became nothing more than a debated footnote in the dusty archives of the galactic hegemony. To the trillions of sentient beings currently inhabiting the Milky Way, humanity was a myth, a ghost story told to fledgling pilots about a race that burned too bright and extinguished itself before the first warp gate was ever forged. But myths have a way of breathing, and sometimes they wake up. Welcome to Chronicle Nexus, where today we delve into a discovery that shattered the status quo of 1,000 worlds. We are talking about the day the silence broke. The day a lone scavenger, hunting for scrap in the graveyard of a dead solar system, stumbled upon a relic that shouldn't exist. A cryopod humming with a low-frequency power source that defied every law of modern physics. It wasn't alien, it wasn't hegemony, it was something far older, far more dangerous, and infinitely more primal. It was human. The scavenger's name was Jax, a member of the Vora, a lithe four-armed species known for their mechanical intuition and their desperate poverty. Jax didn't care about history. He cared about the next meal, the next fuel cell, and keeping his rusted ship, the Starseeker, from imploding under the pressure of the void. He had been scanning the debris field of a shattered moon when his sensors picked up a rhythmic pulse.
Searching for a sign
it wasn't the chaotic static of a decaying reactor. It was a heartbeat. A mechanical, artificial heartbeat, beating once every 60 seconds, echoing through the vacuum like a funeral drum. When Jax hauled the object into his cargo bay, he expected gold or rare isotopes. Instead, he found a cylinder of oxidized titanium and reinforced glass, frosted over with a layer of nitrogen ice so thick it looked like solid marble. He wiped away the frost with a trembling hand, and his breath hitched in his throat. Inside, suspended in a translucent blue gel, was a creature. It had 2 arms, 2 legs, and a face of haunting symmetry. It looked fragile, almost soft, compared to the chitinous plates of the Vora or the crystalline structures of the silicoids. Jax's computer couldn't identify the DNA. The database simply returned an error code that hadn't been seen in 10 millennia. Subject, progenitor class. Status, extinct. As Jax's mechanical tools hissed against the ancient seals, he had no way of knowing that he wasn't just opening a box. He was pulling the pin on a cosmic grenade. The moment the seal broke, a sound like a sharp intake of breath echoing through the bay, a signal was triggered. It didn't travel at the speed of light. It traveled through the subspace lattice, a dimension of pure energy that the current galactic civilizations used for communication, but never truly understood. Across the galaxy, in the high spires of the capital world, ancient monoliths that had been dormant for eons suddenly flared with a terrifying golden light. In the deep-sea trenches of the Aquarian colonies, automated defense systems, buried under miles of silt, began to hum with a power they hadn't tasted in 30,000 years. And in the forbidden archives of the hegemony, the black boxes, devices of unknown origin that dictated the laws of the galaxy, began to output a single, repeating line of code. The architect has returned. Relinquish control. Back on the Starseeker, the air in the cargo bay grew heavy with the smell of ozone and ancient medicine. The blue gel drained away, revealing the man inside. He was wearing a simple, dark flight suit, with a patch on the shoulder, that depicted a blue marble and a single word in a blocky, forgotten script: endurance. The man's eyes snapped open. They weren't the glowing orbs of a cybernetic augmented being or the multifaceted lenses of an insectoid. They were brown, deep, and filled with a sudden, agonizing clarity. He coughed, a raw, violent sound that seemed to shake the very hull of the ship. "Where?" the man rasped, his voice a dry whisper that sent shivers down Jax's spine. "Where is the fleet? Where is Earth?" Jax didn't understand the language, a dialect of English that had evolved into a dozen different alien tongues over the millennia, but he understood the fear. And he understood the power, because as the man stepped out of the pod, the gravity on the ship suddenly stabilized. The flickering lights turned a steady, brilliant white. The ship's computer, usually a temperamental AI that complained about every command, went silent, replaced by a new interface, sleek, geometric, and terrifyingly efficient. "System override initiated," the ship's voice announced, but it wasn't the voice Jax knew. It was cold, feminine, and carried the weight of an empire. Recognized user, Commander Elias Thorne. Rank, Apex. Authorization, total. The galaxy didn't just change because a human was found. It changed because the galaxy was never meant for the aliens who claimed it. The warp gates, the terraformed worlds, the very stars themselves, they were all a grand machinery left behind by a race that had gone into hiding to survive a cataclysm beyond comprehension. The hegemony were merely squatters in a mansion they couldn't afford, using tools they didn't understand. Elias Thorne looked at his hands, then at the terrified scavenger cowering in the corner. He didn't see an alien, he saw the result of 30,000 years of neglect. He reached out to the ship's console, and his fingers moved with a muscle memory that bypassed the need for instructions. "Computer," Elias said, his voice gaining strength. "Status of the Sol System." "Sol System is dark, Commander," the AI responded. "The sun is stable. Earth is silent. Current galactic population, 4.2 trillion. Non-human occupancy, 99.9%. Elias closed his eyes for a moment. A flicker of grief crossed his face, followed by something much harder. Something like iron. 30,000 years, he whispered. "We slept too long." He looked at the view screen, where the distant stars of the Milky Way twinkled with a false sense of security. To the rest of the galaxy, this was the era of peace, of the hegemony, of the slow progression of time. But to Elias Thorne, it was an infestation. The master gene, a sequence of DNA that acted as a universal key to every piece of high technology in the universe, was now active. As the Starseeker, or rather the vessel now designated as Vanguard Scout 1, began to accelerate, not through warp, but through a fold in space-time that Jax didn't even know existed, the ripple effect hit the core worlds. The High Archon of the hegemony was in the middle of a session when the Great Seal of the Senate cracked down the middle. A holographic projection appeared in the center of the room, a map of the galaxy, but not the one they knew. It was a map of territories, of fortresses, and of biological containment zones. A message appeared in every known language, burned into the retinas of everyone watching. The Protocol of Awakening is active. All provisional governments are hereby dissolved. Return to your designated sectors. The architects are reclaiming the hearth. Panic didn't happen all at once. It started as a whisper, a glitch in the banking systems, a door that wouldn't open, a ship that refused to fire its weapons at a human-shaped signal. But within hours, the realization set in. The progenitors weren't a myth. They were the landlords, and they had just come home to find the house in disarray. Jax watched as Elias Thorne navigated the ship toward the center of the galaxy, the Great Singularity, which everyone believed was a black hole, but which Elias knew was the front door to the greatest shipyard ever built. "Who are you?" Jax finally managed to ask through his translator. Elias didn't look back, but his reflection in the glass was stern. "I'm the guy who left the lights on," he said. "And now, I'm the guy who's going to decide if you get to stay." The galaxy had spent 30,000 years building a civilization on the bones of humanity. They had forgotten that bones can be used to build a fire, and as the Starseeker vanished into the fold, the first embers of that fire began to burn across the stars. The age of the alien was over. The second era of man had begun, and it started with a single breath in a dark cargo bay. This is just the beginning of the upheaval. Stay tuned as we at Chronicle Nexus follow the trail of Elias Thorne and the reactivation of the ancient Earth defense networks. The stars are no longer silent, and they are calling for their true masters. The reactivation of Elias Thorne was not merely the revival of a man. It was the input of a master password into a galaxy that had forgotten its owner. As the Starseeker drifted into the nebula's veil, Kaelin stood before the cryo chamber, watching the frost melt into tears on the glass. Elias Thorne didn't look like a god or a conqueror.
Delta 47
he looked fragile, his skin
Gamma.
the color of parchment,
Override
his eyes
authorization.
fluttering with the
Elias
weight of
Warren.
30 millennia of dreams. But when those eyes finally opened, they weren't the dim, confused eyes of a scavenger. They were sharp, piercing blue, reflecting a level of cognitive enhancement that the current human colonies hadn't seen in 1,000 generations. Elias's first words were not a plea for help, nor a question of where he was. He looked at the rusted, jury-rigged consoles of Kaelin's ship, leaned forward with a grace
Failure
that
is not
defied
an
his
option.
stiff muscles, and
The
whispered a
endurance is
single
our
string
only
of
hope,
alphanumeric
and we will
code.
see this mission
The
through.
Starseeker's computer, a salvaged piece of junk that barely managed life support, didn't just respond, it transformed. The flickering monitors stabilized into a deep, crystalline violet. The humming of the engines smoothed into a silent, rhythmic thrum. Across the ship, hidden subroutines that Kaelin never knew existed began to fire. The ship wasn't just a vessel anymore. It had been reclaimed. "The beacon is live," Elias said, his voice raspy but commanding. "Tell me, Captain, how much of our empire remains?" Kaelin could only stammer. "Empire? Humanity? We are scavengers, Elias. We live in the cracks of the Vorn hegemony. We are a lesser species now." A cold, hard smile played on Elias's lips. "Not anymore."
is breached.
Outside
Initiate
the
failsafe.
viewport, the galaxy began to scream in a way only sensors
We're
could
losing
detect.
power across the grid.
From the dead moons of Jupiter to the hollowed-out asteroids of the Oort cloud, ancient machinery, buried under kilometers of dust and alien outposts, began to draw power. These were the sleeping giants, the planetary defense platforms and automated shipyards of the solar zenith age. For 30,000 years, they had waited for a biological signature that matched the High Command. In the
When we left
capital
Earth,
of the Vorn hegemony,
the risks.
the alien High Overseers
But I
watched
never
in
imagined
horror
it would end
as
like
their
this.
terraforming stations suddenly locked them out. On the fringe worlds, the god tech that the aliens had worshipped or exploited for centuries turned its weapons inward. The human DNA of Elias Thorne was the spark in a galaxy-sized powder keg. He was the living key, and his awakening had just triggered a system restore for the entire Milky Way. As Elias recovered, he shared the truth of why he was
The
frozen.
anomaly is expanding
Humanity
faster
hadn't
than
been
projected.
defeated by an external
We
foe
need to initiate
30,000
the
years ago.
containment protocol
They had reached
immediately.
the transcendence threshold, a point where their technology became so advanced it threatened to tear the fabric of local space-time. To prevent a cosmic catastrophe, the architects of Old Earth initiated the Great Hibernation. They hid their greatest minds and their most terrifying weapons, waiting for a time when the galaxy was stable enough to be reclaimed. "We didn't die out," Elias explained, as he watched a holographic map of the stars begin to glow with thousands of green icons, humanity's hidden caches. "We just stepped out for a moment, but it seems the neighbors moved into our house and started trashing the place." The shift was instantaneous. In the Centauri cluster, a Vorn dreadnought was intercepted not by a rebel fleet, but by a ghost ship, a massive, sleek silver monolith that phased out of the void, controlled by an AI that had been dreaming of this slaughter for eons. The Vorn weapons, once thought invincible, bounced off the silver hull like pebbles against a mountain. With a single pulse of coherent light, the dreadnought was erased from existence. No explosion, no debris, just silence. Word spread through the subspace relays like wildfire. The old ones were back. But they weren't aliens. They were the ancestors of the very slaves the hegemony had been treading upon. Elias Thorne didn't want a throne. He wanted a restoration. He began broadcasting a signal on a frequency that bypassed every alien jammer. It wasn't a message of war. It was a wake-up call to every human soul living in the dirt. He transmitted the inheritance codes, small fragments of data that unlocked the dormant genetic potential within every living human. Suddenly, the scavengers were no longer weak. Across 1,000 planets, humans found their reflexes sharpening, their minds expanding, and their latent psychic abilities, long suppressed by alien atmospheric dampeners, flaring to life. A kitchen maid on a Vorn resort world suddenly found she could crush the steel neck of her overseer with a thought. A mining crew in the asteroid belts realized they could interface directly with the machinery, turning heavy drills into precision cannons. The galaxy didn't just change, it inverted. The predators became the prey. Kalen watched as Elias Thorne stood on the bridge of the Starseeker, which had now been encased in a shimmering hull of nanites. Growing into a formidable corvette, they were headed for Earth, or what remained of it. The cradle had been a restricted zone for millennia, guarded by a lethal automated grid that no alien species could bypass. But as they approached, the grid didn't fire. It parted like the Red Sea. Below them, the gray, desolate Earth began to change. The green sour satellites, triggered by Elias's proximity, began firing beams of concentrated life energy into the atmosphere. In a matter of days, oceans began to clear. Forests that had been extinct for 20,000 years erupted from the soil in a violent, beautiful surge of growth. The ruins of New York and London were swallowed by vibrant life, preparing the ground for a new civilization. "This is the cost of our return," Elias said, looking down at the transforming world. "The galaxy will fear us before it loves us. We are the ghosts of their legends, and we have come to collect our debt." The second era of man was not a time of peace. Not yet. It was a time of reckoning. The alien empires scrambled to form an alliance, a last stand against the rising tide of humanity. But how do you fight a species that has hidden its best weapons in the very stars you orbit? How do you fight a people who have just remembered they used to be gods? As the Starseeker descended toward the lush, reborn surface of Earth, Kalen realized that his life as a scavenger was over. He was no longer a man looking for scraps. He was the vanguard of a new dawn. The 30,000-year-old man had opened the pod, and in doing so, he had unlocked the cage of the entire human race. The stars were no longer silent. They were screaming the name of their master, and for the first time in history, the name was ours. The story of Elias Thorne is just the first chapter in a saga that spans across the void. The galaxy is a vast, dangerous place, But the Chronicle Nexus is here to ensure that the history of our future is never forgotten. We have only scratched the surface of what the second era of man holds. What other secrets lie dormant in the forbidden sectors of space? What will the Vorn hegemony do now that their gods have returned to claim the throne? The answers are hidden in the stars, and we are the ones who will find them. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the awakening of a lost empire, make sure you don't miss our next transmission. The journey is just beginning, and the galaxy is changing every second. Be sure to like this video and subscribe to Chronicle Nexus right now. Join our community of explorers as we uncover the mysteries of the cosmos, the secrets of ancient civilizations, and the incredible future of humanity. Hit that notification bell so you're always the first to know when a new chronicle drops. The stars are calling. Will you answer? Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next chapter, only here on Chronicle Nexus.